Week 9, it's been real. Ravens might be real. 27-13 is your final as Baltimore has now strung 3 wins in a row. A definitely depleted offensive roster coming into this one, but no less. Lamar leads the way. 12-22, a buck 33, another 82 on the ground, but came up big when his team needed it most. So did the defense here, spurred maybe by the addition of Roquan Smith at the deadline a week ago, making it easier on those around him. New Orleans, meanwhile, down and just about out. Andy Dalton, 19 of 29, was under siege and looked lost at times, late on reads, late on throws. When you add it all up, 3-6 is the worst start for the Saints since 2005. That was the year prior to the acquisition of Drew Brees. All right, let's put a bow on it with our guys as we say hello to Tyler Sullivan and Ryan Wilson. Gentlemen, interesting ball game here between the Ravens and the Saints. We talked about it coming into the game, that depleted roster, a whole lot of attrition that the Ravens were dealing with here on the road. Tough place to play. They come out of there with a win, and now a winning streak is alive heading into the bye. Ryan, I'll go your way first here. What'd you learn about the Ravens tonight as their back was against the wall and they made it look pretty easy against the Saints team?
They did make it look pretty easy, and you talked about it a little bit there in the intro, Joe, with Roquan Smith's addition. He made some plays. Justin Houston, who's 33 years old, is now their go-to edge rusher. He came into this game. He now has 8.5 sacks after getting 2.5 sacks tonight. And this is only his 6th game with the Ravens. The last time the Ravens had a double-digit sack guy, it was Terrell Suggs back in 2017. That tells you how long it's been since they've had those fearsome edge rushers to get after the quarterback. And we saw that consistently tonight. In addition to Justin Houston, Calais Campbell is doing his thing. Andy Dalton, primetime Andy had no answers. We knew that because it was going to be primetime, so no surprises there. But I think defensively you can take away that they were able to stand up. We know what Lamar can do, even with the lack of playmakers due to injury. Deshaun Jackson played a little bit before a hamstring injury. Kenyon Drake has refound himself in Baltimore, that running game. I think if you want to pick some nits, Lamar missed some relatively easy throws in the first half that could have possibly been touchdowns or close to it. We've seen that at points this season, but all told, he is that offense. And if the defense can round itself into shape and John Harbaugh can avoid these costly mistakes that they had early in the season in the end of games, this team is right back in the mix in the AFC.
Yeah, I'm with you right there, Ryan. I mean, this team could go on a legitimate run that could result in the #1 seed in the AFC. I mean, that's not out of the realm of possibility here. When you look at their schedule going into this week, the lowest strength of schedule remaining in the NFL, I'm sure that's going to remain. You look at Kansas City, they looked a little bit weak there against the Tennessee Titans for a second. You kind of could push them around a little bit if you want to focus on the running game. That's something that the Baltimore Ravens can do, and then we don't know what's going to happen with Josh Allen and his elbow. There's a window here for the Baltimore Ravens to make a significant run, and more importantly for them, you have a time here. You're going into your bye. Your next game is until November 20th. You can get healthy. You can get Mark Andrews back to relative health, 80, 90%, so you can help the rest of the way there. You got to remember, J.K. Dobbins is on IR. He's going to come back to help this backfield. Obviously, Rashad Bateman's out for the year, but ultimately, they're going to have pieces, and they have a period right now where they can get healthy, and then the rest of the way, it's really not that difficult of a schedule. This is a team, if they get right, and we just saw them play well defensively with the addition of Roquan Smith, the pieces are aligning together now for the Baltimore Ravens to make some significant noise in the AFC.
I do want to get to the big picture here in just a bit, but living in the here and now, this 27-13 final, the Ravens coming away with their 3rd consecutive win, guys. You both mentioned him. Roquan Smith in the middle, didn't get his numbers that we're used to as a Bear, but as he gets assimilated to that defensive front and that defensive approach around him, what does a guy like this in the middle do for what is an aging defense with a lot of talent and some big names and some big contracts on it if they do want to make that push down the stretch here, Tyler?
Yeah, I think I would equate it to almost if a team acquires a #1 wide receiver. Everything else kind of falls into place. There's a domino effect. So, yeah, like you were saying, Roquan Smith may have not had his numbers in this game, but certainly had an impact and frees up guys like Justin Houston to have a monster outing for 2.5 sacks, an interception, a lot of balls batted at the line of scrimmage throughout that defense there going up against Andy Dalton. So, for me, that's what's going to be significant. Not only what he can do himself physically, in the middle of that defense, but how it's a domino effect for everything else that the Ravens want to do defensively. I mean, we know this. The Baltimore Ravens, when they have a legit middle linebacker, they're as good as anybody in the NFL. You go all the way back to Ray Lewis. This is the type of player that they're adding here that gives them that type of a ceiling to really lead them defensively. Obviously, Andy Dalton is not the toughest opponent that they're going to face the rest of the way and going into the playoffs. But ultimately, this is a guy over the next few weeks, now that he's going to assimilate into this offense, going into the bye, could kind of catch his breath a little bit. They're only going to be that much more dangerous. And like I said, it's a domino effect. Because he's there, it's going to make everybody's life easier, whether it's in the front seven or in that secondary. This Ravens defense is going to be dangerous.
Andy Dalton catching strays there, Sully. Just calling him out. Fun fact, let's see here. Most career losses all time versus the Ravens. Andy Dalton at 10 after this loss tonight. So I think you're onto something there. But you mentioned the lineage. Ray Lewis, Bart Scott, C.J. Mosley, Patrick Queen, most recently who they drafted, and now they've acquired Roquan Smith. The road to success starts on the defense in Baltimore, and it often leads to deep playoff runs. You could make the exception that Joe Flacco got red hot at the end of the 2012 season when he bet on himself and won the Super Bowl. But it was the defense that got them to that point before January and February rolled around. And it feels similarly this time around. We know what Lamar Jackson can do, but if you have a defense that gets off the field and gets you the ball back, that makes things eminently easier for you as an offense. And that's what we've seen from the Ravens of late. And I think there's going to be 23 days between the Ravens will play one game in 23 days. Sully mentioned they have their bye coming up. Don't play again until November 20th. That's more time for Roquan to get assimilated into the system. And when they come back, I think it's going to be all systems go to make that push down the stretch.
You guys allude to Andy Dalton's struggles here against the Ravens. I'm afraid his struggles are not reserved to here just with the Ravens. Looking at this team, they're 3-6, which is far from finished in that division right now. But when you take a look at the quarterback depth chart with the Saints right now, Ryan, does Andy Dalton give this team the best chance to win?
Well, I think he does when everyone on the planet that's involved with the organization isn't injured. On the defensive side, there was no Marshawn Lynch. Bradley Roby's done for the year. On the offensive side, Mike Thomas didn't play. Jarvis Landry didn't play. And they also lost edge rusher Marcus Davenport and linebacker Pete Werner during the game. So Andy Dalton, when it's not prime time, when it's not dark outside, is pretty good. At 1 p.m. or 4 p.m. on Sunday, he's your dude. Prime time isn't his best. But that said, if you could get the playmakers there around him, it gives him an opportunity for success. I don't think Jameis Winston and or Taysom Hill would have done any better had they been on the field and healthy. And I think, this is the conversation that Dennis Allen is having and trying to convince himself, which poison to pick as he moves forward with the quarterback situation. But ideally, and you mentioned it, Joe, the division's not great, but ideally they need to get healthy and get their playmakers healthy. Chris Olave has been a wonderful find, but he can't do it by himself. Alvin Kamara can't do it by himself. And I think, the next few weeks you get these guys back on the field, make that move in terms of the push. But I think Andy Dalton probably gives you the best chance. But again, it's not a great option of characters to choose from at the quarterback position right now.
Yeah, I'm right there with you, Ryan. When you start talking about pick your poison at the quarterback position, you're not really in a great spot at all at that most important position in the entire sport. So, yes, is Andy Dalton the best option between him, Jameis Winston, even Taysom Hill? Sure, I guess, if it's not primetime. Like we were saying earlier, going into this game, he was 0 for 6 in his last 6 primetime games, lost all of those by 8+ points. You can put this another one, so it's 7 in a row now that he's lost in that regard. So when you have that kind of a quarterback, it's really hard to feel confident going into those big primetime games, playoff-type atmospheres. You are leaning on that guy to lead you to victory, very similar to what we've seen in Lamar Jackson tonight. Was it perfect passing the football? No, but he was able to make plays with his feet and clearly do things to put his team in position to win. Andy Dalton hasn't been able to do that. Now, do I think Jameis Winston would do better? Probably not. Same thing with Taysom Hill. It's just not going to be the best. But ultimately, yeah, he's probably the best guy that they have. But I don't know what necessarily that means in terms of their long-term future in 2022 of making the playoffs or not.
All right, let's offer a final thought here on the Ravens, who do head into the bye. As we said, 3 wins in a row and some time to get the body right. We know Tyler's bullish on their chances here and the way it lines up. So I'll go to you first here, Ryan. What is the ceiling for this Ravens team, their current construct, and the road ahead?
Oh, I mean, it's wide open in the AFC. I think we saw last night the Chiefs sputtered their way to a victory. The Bills lost the football game. The Dolphins struggled their way to a victory in Chicago. So, again, it's wide open. The Bengals actually blew the doors off the Panthers after struggling the week before against the Browns. And I think all those teams right there are in the conversation. Even throw the Titans in there if you want to once Ryan Tannehill gets healthy. So I'll give the Ravens just as good a chance as the teams 3, 4, and 5, for example.
Okay.
So let's say the Dolphins, the Ravens, and the Bengals. I think all those teams have a legit chance to get into the conversation, find their way into the AFC Championship game, and play either the Bills or the Chiefs as we sit here. We'll see how it unfolds. But I like their odds. And you know, the arrow's pointing up, as we like to say. They started that season 2 months ago, losing games at the end that they shouldn't lose, and now they're winning those football games, and that has to be taken as a positive as the defense comes on.
Yeah, I'll just echo what Ryan said and what I said earlier. This team has the ceiling to be the number 1 seed in the AFC, partially because of their roster, partially because of the rest that they're going to have over the next couple of weeks here. And when you look at their schedule over the next few weeks and down the stretch, I mean, you come out of this bye, you're playing Carolina, then Jacksonville, then Denver, then Pittsburgh. All of those should be wins. There shouldn't be any resistance there really going down the list. So for me, that is what the high ceiling is for the Baltimore Ravens here, is the number 1 seed in the AFC. If they get there, that remains to be seen, but ultimately the path is there for them to make a significant run.
I mean, alternate universe with some different execution. We could be talking about 9-0 heading into the bye as they held double-digit leads in each of those 3 losses. We'll see what the Ravens have down the stretch, and these guys will be there to break it all down. Thank you, gentlemen. All right, and here's a look at that playoff picture with the Bills and the Chiefs still the pace car at 6-2. That head-to-head does belong to Buffalo, but they lose that one to the Jets, which opens the door and leaves some hope for others to perhaps say the road comes through us, the Ravens. Not far behind, 6-3, 3 in a row, and heading into their bye.
Do you want a sports network that delivers everything that matters about the game? The highlights, the picks, the instant analysis, no yelling, no fake debates, no politics. Hit the subscribe button and never miss a moment.